Okay, welcome to Energetic Medicine. For millennia, our species has looked to nature for ways to help guide us in healing. We are intimately connected to the processes around us. We tend to forget that because we're so technological and we think we're so smart, that we are somehow above or isolated from the natural patterns of the world and the cosmos, but this is not true. We are as much a part of nature as anything around us, any animal or bacteria or virus or plant. So I want to explore what is medicine, and medicine from the perspective of our history as a species. And I want to start to go down a bit of a rabbit hole about what it means to practice medicine, what it means for our species, and the roots of the history and the roots of medicine. I have a personal belief, or you could say a personal hallucination, that when we practice medicine, we are functioning as a shaman. And I mean that literally, that we are working within the same archetype, essentially a shamanic archetype, and that this is a continuous and a contiguous path throughout our history, that whenever we are doing things or acting as a healer, we are functioning essentially as a shaman. I have a belief that a physician is actually a shaman and is working from that archetype, however unconsciously. The physician may not be aware that she is a shaman, but this is nonetheless true. So the physician is essentially a shaman, and that stethoscope is actually a rattle. And I think the more we can bring this to light, the more we can understand that physicians and priests and psychologists are essentially shamans, the more we can understand what practices we're engaged in as healers and what is missing in our modern era, in our current day, compared to traditional shamanism. So what do shamans do? Well, shamans in all cultures, or in most cultures anyway, they lay on hands. They put hands on their patients. There's prayer, divination, and mystical journeying. A shaman will go off into a distant realm and come back with information. There's often plant medicine given. And then the attention, both the shaman's attention and potentially the patient's attention, goes to the natural world for validation. I believe that this relationship is hardwired in our species. This is something that we are hardwired to look for and expect in our practitioners. So you go to your physician with painful urination. It's a very interesting environment. It's a very unusual environment. And she does mysterious things to you. She examines you, lays hands on you, and then she goes off into another realm where they speak a mysterious language that you cannot understand. And in that realm, she communes with the spirits in a place she calls the internet, or perhaps, talks with colleagues on the telephone or on the computer. And then she comes back and she has a message for you in that strange language. And she tells you you have cystitis, a word you have never heard before. That is an inherently shamanic relationship. You approach this person, she speaks a language you don't understand, she does things you don't understand, she goes off into a realm and then comes back and gives you information from the other side. And how does she do this? Well, this process, what we call diagnosis, is actually archetypally a form of divination. So what does diagnosis mean? Diagnosis means through knowledge, via knowledge. So that physician goes back to that other world, that other universe, comes back, and she gives you a magical substance to help you alleviate your suffering. She calls it a prescription. And that character, the radix character, the root for prescription, comes from the word root, because originally prescriptions were plant medicines, and they were very often roots. So that practitioner, through their knowledge, will go off to another realm, come back to meet you, give you information, perhaps give you roots or herbs or medications or drugs, and traditionally would use breath and touch. As that person acted as an intermediary to the outer realms, to the spirit world, would come back and help you heal. Now, allopathic medicine, what we call scientific medicine, is by its nature deductive and exclusive. So you went to your patient with painful urination, and that physician is not really interested in your diet, in the stress in your job, in your family relationships, the pollution in your environment, or any of that stuff. She is only concerned about your bladder. And actually, not just your bladder. She wants to find that one damned pathogen that's causing the pain, that bacteria that's causing the pain. Actually, not even that. She wants to find that one damned molecule on the surface of the bacteria that is interacting with the surface of your bladder cells, and find the one damn molecule that's getting in the way and that's causing the problem. And she wants to find a medication that fits right into that place and blocks the infection. So scientific medicine is deductive and exclusive. It wants to eliminate variables. It wants to get rid of things, to find and fix that one damn molecule that is messing things up. But traditional medicine is very different. Traditional medicines are inductive and inclusive. Rather than getting rid of things, they want to bring more and more into the picture. So you go to your acupuncturist with that same painful urination, and she doesn't ask you about or go to the internet to find out which molecule is messing things up. She's not interested in the specific molecules on your bladder cells or the drug that will ruin their day. She wants to know about your emotions, your partner, your family, and the surrounding environment. Actually, even more than that, she wants to know what season it is, what the planet is doing, what the whole universe is doing. So she wants to bring more and more in to the picture to treat you within context of the whole universe. So traditional medicine is inductive and inclusive. It really wants to bring more and more things into the equation rather than eliminating things. So I often say that scientific medicine or allopathic medicine or Western medicine cannot see the forest for the trees. It's so busy looking for those damn molecules that it can't see the context in which things happen, the connections between things. And traditional medicine cannot see the trees for the forest. It's so busy looking at the interconnected universal patterns that it can't see that one damn molecule that's messing things up. Now, obviously, we need both. Practicing medicine with only one half of our brain is like running a race with only one leg. We have two parts, two sides to our brain for a reason. You can run a race with only one leg. You can do it, but it's probably not a great idea in the long run. In terms of scientific medicine, I often say that science is a good servant but a poor master. I could also say that about shamanism. Shamanism is a good servant but a poor master. If we're only using one half of our brain to look at patients, we're missing a whole universe that's extremely important. Okay, So back to traditional medicines. Why does a traditional medicine diagnosis sound like a weather report? Well, in traditional cultures, nature was everything. There was a constant referencing to nature to see how to survive in the world. And without that intimate relationship with the natural world, people would perish, literally perish. So they had to look to nature for their answers. So the tendency was to look out to the world to explain what was going on inside. Traditional cultures tend to align to the seasons and pay close attention to natural cycles and to the quality of their environment because they relied on that environment in order to survive. They tended to honor the ebb and flow of the natural world and the cycles of life and death. Traditional medicines are intimately involved with attention to the living and to the dying. Throughout history, as human beings, we were viewed as microcosms of the whole universe. In the Middle Ages, the Hermetic practitioners would say, as above, so below. We are a microcosm. We are a universe within ourselves, and we are also within the greater universe. So what was seen happening in the outside world was assumed to be happening inside our bodies. Traditional medicines created diagnostics based on what they observed. They used terms from nature, terms like hot and cold, wet and dry. These are ideas that, from what was outside, would happen inside. And we could understand what was happening inside by viewing what was happening outside. So this is a list of kind of a cheat sheet, a shortcut of symbols, signs, symptoms in the body that would tend to point to either hot or cold, cold or heat. So I want you to memorize this list. This will be very useful for you when you start looking at people and you want to determine whether somebody has what's called a cold condition or a hot condition. So under cold, which the Chinese call yin, things tend to be pale and white. They are clear. They move slowly. They are thin. They tend to be quiet and they tend to have no smell. Things that are hot or yang, on the other hand, they show up as either yellow, red, brown, or green. They tend to be murky as opposed to clear, and they move quickly or fast as opposed to slowly. They tend to be thick instead of thin. They tend to be loud instead of quiet, and they tend to smell bad. Heat smells bad. So if a patient comes to you, they have a pale face and a pale tongue with a white coat and a clear vaginal discharge. Their pulse is slow. The discharge is thin. They talk in a quiet voice and the discharge has no smell. That would be a cold condition. On the other hand, if that same patient comes to you and they have a yellow vaginal discharge, they have a yellow coat in their tongue is red, they're coughing up brown or green phlegm, the discharge is murky, their pulse is fast, the discharge is thick, their voice is loud, and the discharge has a bad smell, that would be a hot or yang condition. Now, people never show up in one or the other. Typically, it's a mixture of both. But this is a good way to start thinking about what in traditional medicine is called hot or cold conditions. And this is about finding balance. This is about when hot and cold are balanced in our body, we have health. So just as nature was seen to be in balance, health was also understood to be dependent on balance. And that balance was seen as a way to measure health. If we're balanced, things are good in the world and we're healthy. The internal balance in our body reflected the external balance in the world, and also the internal balance in our bodies was also a reflection of how we act in the external world. How do we behave? So how we behave would affect our internal balance and our health. So when these elements fall out of balance, we would become ill. And traditional medicines use these terms, hot, cold, wind, damp, rain, storm, all those things to describe imbalances in the body. When our elements fall out of balance, our bodies will struggle to function. They struggle to maintain a healthy balance, and we can be very challenged. That's what illness is. It's a challenge, and we are challenged. Oftentimes things like a fever are seen as the battle inside between the elements are trying to maintain balance against a pathogen. And of course, when we're ill, we're still in a kind of balance. We're always in balance in some way, but it might not be very optimal. It might not be an optimal balance or a healthy balance. So traditional medicines have come up with very sophisticated theories over thousands of years and countless epidemics that have helped their cultures and their people survive. Things like Thai medicine, Tibetan medicine, Ayurveda, Native American medicine, shamanic medicines from Europe. All these medicines, Aboriginal medicines, a lot of them have theories that are quite sophisticated as to how we become sick or how we become healthy. And shamans throughout history have used elaborate Materia Medica plant medicines and techniques to address these imbalances. They involved thousands of plant medicines, thousands, all over the world, that have been studied by thousands of different cultures for thousands of years. So we might want to take another look at plant medicines and see how they can inform us as to our health. And plants are little chemical factories that are constantly evolving and making new chemicals. Our bodies evolved to adapt to plant medicines. We have phytoreceptors in our bodies that evolved to meet the plants around us. So traditional medicine is something that I think really needs to re-emerge now, hand in hand with scientific medicine, to help us to understand our world and our environment and to help create a healthier planet and healthier bodies.